Hey guys, so welcome back to another video. We're starting off things a little bit differently. I know everyone's been out of school for the last couple weeks. And I know a lot of you guys were excited to go down to the Acura dealership in Crowfoot. So instead of doing that, I'm gonna take you for a little bit of a virtual tour. So let's hop on in, let's get rolling here. Alright guys, so we just got here to Northwest Acura, so let's hop out. Let's take a look inside.
Hi, my name is Joshua Lam. I am the General Sales Manager of Northwest Acura in Crowfoot, which I believe is the Acura dealership right down the street from you guys. I've been talking to Vernon recently about assisting with an additional educational segment, primarily about purchasing or leasing vehicles, and as well as giving you guys some guidance in terms of other questions related to the automobile industry. I've been with the dealership for about 15 years now. I started off on the sales floor selling new and used vehicles, eventually became an assistant sales manager, then a pre-owned sales manager, new car manager, then the financial services manager, and now the general sales manager for the last 10 years. Hopefully my experience will be able to assist with you guys understanding the different intricacies about purchasing a vehicle and different considerations you need to have before you buy. Now, we're probably going to spend about 10 to 15 minutes here answering four main questions. The four questions are, number one, what are the top three factors that somebody should consider before buying or leasing a vehicle? Question two, what are some typical things that might not be included in the displayed price of a vehicle? Number three, what are the typical insurance costs for a 17 or 18-year-old student? And number four, what are the most important things to keep in mind while leasing a car? So let's get started with number one. What are the top three factors that somebody should consider before buying or leasing a car? Now, this is a pretty large scale question, but I think that if I had to choose three main items, number one would be, what are your needs? And number two, what is your budget? And number three, where are you going to buy the vehicle from? So to elaborate on number one, what are your needs? I mean, you want to think about, do you want a sedan? Do you want an SUV? What type of features do you want? Are you looking for something with all-wheel drive, front-wheel drive, automatic transmission, or maybe a manual transmission? And what's your lifestyle like? Like, do you need a vehicle to go out to the mountains often? Are you maybe snowboarding or skiing often? Maybe you need more cargo space to put your items inside the vehicle. Are you traveling with passengers often, or are you mainly by yourself? Maybe that'll help you determine if, just a two-seater vehicle is enough for you, or maybe you need a larger SUV. There's a lot of different features available for vehicles nowadays, but I think the main thing to remember is there's a lot of things that you need, and there's a lot of things that maybe you just want. And that's when the second thing comes into play is your budget. What can you afford? It's easy to think about that. If you earn, say, $1,000 a month, and you look online and, a car payment's about $600-700 a month, you're thinking to yourself is, I can probably afford $600 to $700. But there's actually a lot of other costs involved when you're purchasing a vehicle. Things like your gas costs. I mean, the average person in Alberta will drive about 24,000 kilometers per year. And if you take the average fuel economy in Alberta, that's on average filling up about once per week. So if it's going to cost you $50 to fill up your tank every week, you got to make sure you account for that in your budget as well. On top of that, you also have vehicle insurance, which we're going to get into the cost a little bit later, but insurance costs can be quite large, especially when you're a new driver. Now, the average insurance cost in Alberta is about $1,200 a person for the year. However, you will see that if you are a new driver or younger or have a bad past driving record, that insurance premium can drastically increase. And another large cost that you need to consider is the maintenance cost of a vehicle. It's great that you can make the car payment, the gas payment, pay for insurance, but you have to remember that you also have to maintain your vehicle. And that's not just oil changes, tire rotations, but that also goes to replacing parts that are defective. Things do break over time on vehicles. Now, if you buy a new vehicle, great, you're under warranty, so if you have any issues, it'll be covered in terms of the cost and labor. But if you buy a used vehicle, yeah, it's a low price up front, but if the vehicle doesn't have any warranty, you do need to remember that if something breaks, you're probably responsible for paying for that part. Now, if it's a small sensor, I mean, it could be $150 or something like that, but these cars nowadays are quite advanced in technology, and most of them just run purely on computers. For example, just last week, there was a gentleman who had a 10-year-old Acura where the navigation system had decided to stop working. Now, the cost to repair this navigation system was about $5,000, which he opted to do as he wanted to keep his vehicle longer. So, not only is there technology repairs that need to be done, but suspension components, engine, transmission, all of these things are large expenses on a vehicle if one were to fail. So you want to keep those in mind. That should be part of your budget consideration. And thirdly, when I said where to buy from, that's also a very important thing to consider. The three main sources you can buy a vehicle from: number one is a private seller. This could be from a friend, a family member, or just somebody you meet off Kijiji. You have to remember when you're buying privately, yes, maybe the price is a little bit lower. You don't have to pay tax, or at least in Alberta, you don't have to pay tax on the private sale. But you want to make sure you are doing your due diligence, as in the case of anything happens in terms of the vehicle having mechanical failure shortly after purchase. On a private sale, you have very little recourse in terms of what you can do in terms of getting repair costs refunded to you. Now, the second source is an independent dealership. Now, an independent dealership typically only sells used vehicles. They're very similar to franchise stores. However, they usually offer a little bit less in terms of incentives or competitive interest rates. And it's mainly because they don't have any support from the manufacturers. Now, you might see sometimes you see an advertisement for $5,000 cash back, or $1,000 referral fee, or maybe a promotion to pay off your credit card debt. Just remember, there's no really free money being tossed around. At the end of the day, if you are getting a $5,000 cash back on a car loan, this is usually added to the cost of your financing. If you are using it to consolidate your credit card debt, it might make sense for you to do. However, if if your credit card company interest rate's about 20% and the car loan is 4 or 5%, it might make sense to consolidate it. However, remember, if you free up your credit card, now you have access to revolving credit as well. So not only are you paying off your credit card from your car loan, but now you are also paying off another loan, or you're using your credit card further. So just keep that in mind, that although they're helping you out with that, it's not just free money. Third, a franchise dealership. Kind of like ourselves, a franchise dealership is connected to a manufacturer. We're usually a little bit larger. We sell both new and used vehicles, and we get support from the manufacturers in terms of marketing, promotions, financing, leasing programs. And, sometimes you might see interest rates of 0% or, 1.9, 2.9%. These are all interest rates that are subsidized by the manufacturer to help either push sales or help manage the inventory levels throughout the country. Usually franchise stores also have a service department. For example, we have a service department here that services all makes and models. And we actually offer additional value when clients service their vehicles with us, things like complimentary car wash. We will offer complimentary courtesy vehicles. We have pickup and drop-off services available as well. So, you know what, when you're buying a vehicle, just consider these things. I mean, where are you going to build a relationship with? Is it going to be with a private seller, with the independent store, or potentially a franchise dealership? Okay. Question 2. What are some typical things that might not be included in the displayed price of a car? Now, most provinces are quite heavily regulated in terms of advertisements and what we need to include in our ads. For example, if you see a vehicle listed in the newspaper for $25,000, if somebody was to come into our dealership and refer to that advertisement of that specific car, we need to be able to sell the vehicle for that amount exactly. Now, some of the extra charges you might see on a new vehicle, and they're always shown in newspaper or online advertisements, but usually just in a disclaimer. But the most common things are freight and PDI. PDI stands for pre-delivery inspection. The cost of the PDI can be anywhere between $1,000 all the way up to $4,500, depending on where the vehicle is coming from and what type of shipping process they were actually using. Other dealership installed accessories, things like block heater, splash guards, locking wheel nuts, all-weather floor mats, remote engine starters. These are all going to be different depending on which dealership you go to. Some dealerships will include a large combination of items pre-installed on new vehicles, whereas some dealerships will actually include nothing. And it will be exactly what you see on the manufacturer website. There are other things to consider, things like dealership fees. There might be an administration fee. There might be some sort of security etching program or nitrogen program. And then you have government fees as well. Air condition recovery fee. You have AMVIC fee, AMVIC, which stands for Alberta Motor Vehicle Industry Council. And then there's tire levies, which is usually $4 per tire. And on top of that, you have government taxes, which in Alberta, we're lucky. We only have 5% here. We don't have HST or PST. Whereas, you go to BC, the total interest cost for a vehicle can be up to 12%. And it actually can be more if you're more expensive, as they actually have a luxury vehicle tax where, for example, if a vehicle is over $55,000, they will actually charge an additional, I believe it's another 3% over the cost of the vehicle. As you go further out east in Ontario, the total HSD, I believe, is about 13 or 14%. And if you go even further out east, I mean, you're looking at about 15% on top of the new vehicle pricing. So these are all things that are added to the cost of a vehicle when you just see it on an ad. And then obviously when you pick up the vehicle, there's some other small charges like vehicle registration and insurance costs, right? So you want to keep those in mind. Now, question 3, what are the typical costs of what are the typical insurance costs of a car for a 17 or 18-year-old student? Now, this is a large question that, I will do my best to answer, but because I'm not in the insurance business, I think the best thing to do is contact your insurance company for detailed information. But what I do know is when you're a new driver and you don't have much driving history, your insurance premiums will typically be higher simply because the insurance company doesn't know if you're going to be high risk or low risk. And that doesn't just go with age. It's not just because you're 17 or 18 years old. That can be also because you're just a new person into the country. If you don't have any driving history in Alberta or in Canada, and you only have 30 years in the States, when you come up here, you're still considered a brand new driver. So unfortunately, your insurance premiums will continue to be high. Now, over time, these premiums will go down, assuming that you keep a clean driving record in terms of accident history, speeding tickets, or any type of insurance claims. Even hail or windshield insurance claims can eventually increase your premiums as they consider you a higher risk individual. Also, if you're a primary or secondary driver, this will definitely change the insurance premiums. But for me, I remember when I was under 20 years old, my insurance premium was about $4,500 as a primary driver for 1 year. And, when I turned 25, I kept a pretty good, clean driving record. Eventually, this insurance premium went down to about $2,500. Till now, being 38 years old, my insurance premium is about $1,200. So if you want to keep your premiums low or get low premiums, you need to make sure you keep a clean driving record. Don't get any speeding tickets. And just make sure that you're always paying attention when you're driving. Otherwise, you will see your insurance premiums go up. Now, fourth question, what are the most important things to keep in mind while you're leasing a car? I think the most important thing is while you're leasing the vehicle, you want to determine what your end game is going to be. There's two main things you're going to do at the end of the term. One is you're going to return the vehicle, or potentially you might buy out the vehicle. Now, if you're going to return the vehicle, there's a couple of things you want to pay attention to. One is the vehicle condition. You want to make sure that the vehicle condition stays good. Now, regular wear and tear, like small little chips here and there, is acceptable. But, large dents, large scratches, broken windshield, or any kind of tears or cigarette burns on the inside of the vehicle, these will all be considered wear and tear charges over and above normal wear and tear. So at the end of the term, if you're returning the vehicle and there's any damages on the vehicle, you will be responsible for paying for the repair. Now, the other thing about returning the car is you have a kilometer allowance on a lease. So the reason why there's kilometer allowances is because at the beginning of the lease term, if you tell us that you're going to be driving more kilometers, then your monthly payment will be higher. If you're driving less kilometers, then your monthly payment will be lower. And now at the end of the term, if you're over kilometers, it's not the end of the world, it's okay. It just means that you have to pay an overusage charge. Now, usually what I've seen in the industry is anywhere between 6 to 25 cents per kilometer overage. So for example, if you were allowed 60,000 kilometers over a 3-year term lease, now you're at 61,000 kilometers, being 1,000 kilometers over. If your overage charge is 10 cents per kilometer, that means that at the end of the term, when you return the car, you'll have to pay an additional $100 in terms of kilometer overages. Now, other things that you have to make sure you remember when you're leasing a car, you have to maintain the vehicle as regularly recommended. Most vehicles nowadays will tell you when it's time for an oil change or tire rotation, things like that. So just make sure that you're keeping your vehicle in tip-top shape. Now, at the end of the term, if you're not returning it and you decide to buy out, then actually the condition and the kilometer requirements are no longer a factor. Well, they'll be a factor for you, but no factor for the lender. Now you just have to consider how you are going to buy out the car. The difference between a cash, finance, and leased vehicle, number one, if you're buying cash, for example, if a car is $30,000 and you pay cash for it, then you pay $30,000, you own the vehicle, and you have no amount owing to the car, right? Now, if you finance the vehicle, $30,000, let's just say you finance over a 5-year period. At the end of 5 years, you've paid off the loan. Again, you own the asset completely free and clear. You don't owe anything else to the lender, and that is it. On a lease, if it's a $30,000 car, typically a percentage of that, we'll just say $13,000 of it will be moved to the residual value of the vehicle. So if we took $30,000 minus the residual of $13,000, that leaves a difference of $17,000. So basically the $17,000 amount is what you will be financing over the term that you choose. So for example, if it's a 3-year finance, you're going to pay off that $17,000 in 3 years. At the end of 3 years, you still have a $13,000 buyout. So this buyout can be made either by cash or you can refinance this amount as well. Now, if you're going to refinance it, just remember you've already paid interest on the entire $30,000 for that first 3 years while you're leasing the car. And if you're going to refinance again, now you're paying interest on the remaining $13,000. So you're actually paying interest on it again. So just keep that in mind that, you know what, it's great to buy out the car if it works for you, and you know what, it's just the car you want to keep. But if you know you want to keep the vehicle, then start planning out your strategy about how you're going to buy out the vehicle at the end of the term to reduce your overall cost. Now, all these things about a lease might sound a little bit negative to lease a vehicle. However, just keep in mind that if you keep the condition good and you keep the kilometers good and under your allowance, it's a really great way to purchase a more expensive vehicle for a lower monthly payment. As you can remember, I was saying a $30,000 car, if you finance that over a 3-year period, you'd be financing $10,000 per year, right? Now, if it was the same $30,000 car, $13,000 of it goes to residual, and you only finance $17,000, then you would only be financing $17,000 divided by 3, which is about, say, $5,700 per year, right? So that way the monthly payment is lower, right? So it allows you to purchase or drive a more expensive car for a lower monthly payment. Now, a lot of clients will actually continue to renew their lease at the end of the term instead of just buying it out or simply returning. When you're renewing the lease, the great thing about that is that your own typical lease terms are about 3 to 4 years, and usually manufacturers' warranties will extend beyond that. So when you're continually leasing a vehicle, your vehicle is usually always covered under the manufacturer's warranty. And because of that, you don't get into that space where repair costs become your responsibility. Typically, if you're continually leasing a vehicle, your maintenance costs will also be lower. Things like tires or brakes, the normal wearable parts, you may not drive enough kilometers before these require replacement. Whereas if you're driving the vehicle longer than the 3 or 4 year period and over 100,000 kilometers, these things could come into play, and then more maintenance costs would be your responsibility. In the car industry, we kind of say, the best half of a vehicle is before 100,000 kilometers. And then on the second half, beyond 100,000 kilometers, that's when the vehicle starts declining rapidly in value. Basically, after 100,000 kilometers, even manufacturers know that this is when wearable parts or mechanical parts will eventually start to fail. You can see this with manufacturers' warranties, usually only covering 4 or 5 years to the max. There are some companies like Hyundai that cover up to, I believe, 7 years. And there's a lot of manufacturers that will extend their warranty for an additional cost, even up to 8 or 10 years long. So when you're buying a new or used car, take a look at the warranty, consider what your budget is. Do you have the resilience to handle an additional cost in terms of maintenance down the road? Or if you would like to be fully protected and not worry about these additional costs, then I would highly recommend looking at the cost of a warranty, because sometimes that cost of the warranty will give you that peace of mind, knowing that if something larger breaks, you do not have to worry about it. You won't be out of a car if you can't afford the repair. So anyways, hopefully these answers give you some insight about the car world. Now, I did receive another 15 questions from Vernon as well. I will answer them in a document, and I will make sure that Vernon gets these answers to your other 15 questions. But other than this, if you have any questions down the road, feel free to direct them to Vernon. He can forward it off to me. He's got my contact. I'd be happy to help you guys out at any time. And who knows, sometime down the road, if one of you guys or friends or family members looking for a car, feel free to swing by anytime. Come say hi. Let me know you're from Robert Thirsk and you saw my video, and I'll make sure that you guys are well taken care of. Again, thank you for letting me be a part of your learning opportunity here, and I look forward to meeting you guys sometime in the future.